I want to show you a sign in space. On the left is a photograph I took in Port Alberni in 1994, May the 17th. On the right is November the 16th, 2013. If you look at the left side, which is the old photo, the moon never changed its orientation towards the earth. You always saw the same face. And now, on the right hand side, you'll see the two dots in the middle of the screen, and the two smaller dots on the right hand side of the screen. If you look at the original, you see the two, it's called mare, they're very large. And then the two smaller dots, which you see on the right, is now it originally was in the centre of the moon area. So, in Canada, of course, you have north up when you go to Australia. It's other way around, because you're on the other side of the earth. You're upside down, the moon appears to be upside down. So, as I say, the moon doesn't move. And you see all these white marks on top of the left-hand side. They are actual impact craters. The craters on the moon, the universities, of course, tell you this was a collection of asteroids over a period of 3-4 billion years. In fact, it's wrong. When Mars bumped into the Earth causing the flood, the impact punched out Antarctica, and the moon molten mantle, or the Earth's molten mantle, ejected the moon, and it froze immediately in the atmosphere at very, very cold, I think it's 485 degrees minus Celsius or Fahrenheit. But in any case, the molten material froze, and then all these craters that are perfectly round are gas bubbles popping up at the surface and freezing when it hits the surface at this absolute zero. Later on, a very, very short period of time, it froze, and the centre of the moon is iron core, and it's 40 miles off centre. That's why the magnetic field of the Earth draws it towards it, and it always retains the same orientation towards the Earth up until we cross the Milky Way galaxy on the 11th of December 2011 at 11:11 Australian Eastern Time. We took photographs of it, and the moon flipped upside down. So that was the end of what I'm going to show you, because the moon has to be in its orientation as shown on the left, not as shown on the right, which is all over the place like a dog's breakfast. So it's all been kept quiet, and for this reason I'll show you as we go through it, because NASA and all these scientists that work for the devil have all my computer hacked. Now, you can have your computer hacked. It doesn't have to be online. The satellite dials it up like it do a cell phone, and it just goes straight in the back doors. Now, all computers manufactured have to be able to be backdoored as part of the law, and that is how they can spy on people. You think you're not online when they just dial you up. They've done it to me over and over again. Hack, destroy programs, and I know all this, of course, and I've just got them sitting in a hard drive, which I then download onto the computer again. This program here is called Solar System Scope. It's a program that uses photographs, of course, and then live transmissions from space to show you that the moon is in the right position. Yes, that's lovely. When in fact the moon over Africa today is actually 12 hours out. So what we're seeing here, there's a date that I go back in time to, and it shows you the moon as it was with the dots in the centre. But the orientation is wrong, and it's rotated out of position, because they took this photograph after 2011. It was a new program. So what you can do with this program is move the moon around the Earth, and you can look at it from any perspective, and it shows you the far side of the moon, the side of the moon, the face of the moon looking at you, And if you was in a spacecraft, great. Unfortunately, you've got to look at it when you learn these things, that you're on the Earth, and remember that. So it's called Solar System Scope. It is online with the moon. It can be moved around the Earth, as said. As shown here, the moon can be seen on the far side, as well as the one face is always pointing towards the Earth, as you should be aware of. And the photograph I took was on May 17th, 1994. Now, it's a bit blurry, and the reason for that is just because I'm zooming in on the screen and doing a screenshot. But you see that they had it wrong, and it's upside down. That's the point, it's upside down. There's the original screenshot to the right that I took in 1994, which was right. And the reason for that is it's very, very important. If you see on top left there of the slightly out to the left on the original shot I took, is impact craters. And impact craters are dotted by the creation to spell out Australia and New Zealand. I'll show you that in a moment. Now, I've been studying the moon for decades and had overlaid the plan of the Great Pyramid. I will show you directly, but the fake moon landings join all the locations in an NA italics, and then transfer these to the Earth, and Apollo 17 points to their target, the world domination, Jerusalem. You add all the latitudes up. After all, they're picking them as they go, and the latitudes add up to the word devil. I think it's 1228. So what they're doing is targeting Jerusalem. So when you point to the Apollo 16 and 11, that's the ones on the right there. The lower right is 16 and 17. We end up with that on the Earth. You take the same latitudes and longitudes, place it on the Earth, and that's what you get. Now, if you extend from Jerusalem or Apollo 17 straight to the North Pole of the Earth, it gives you the number 4317 in miles, and that number is Michael the Archangel. Now, my blood has been tested by the Garvan Institute, the leading DNA people in the world. Australia is very advanced in that type of field. In fact, my sister-in-law worked for the first in-vitro fertilisation program in Australia, where the first baby was conceived, I believe, in vitro. And the number for Michael the Archangel is 3413, and the Garvan Institute determined that my unusual blood chromosomes is that number, and Michael the Archangel. 3413. So the third, fourth, and the 13th chromosome. Now, what we're showing you here is you take the reference point, the centre of the moon, and then you have the crater to the right, which is an impact crater. If you look at it up close, you can see that it's a couple of 100 miles of the spray out effect of the material. The crater itself is maybe 53 miles across, surrounded by a large mountain range on the one side of the crater, and the other side is a groove coming into it, showing that it's been hit by an asteroid. So what we have then is that angle. It's the Christ angle, as shown by the Great Pyramids and the Nile Delta, which goes up through the Holy Lands and the Holy People, which is why the Jews are trying to kill them, Palestine. And it was the Palestinians that were called the people called the Shepherd Kings, that invaded Egypt for 100 years, closed down all the temples, had the one true God, built the Great Pyramid, and then left. And that's what that's all about. So the Shepherd Kings came and built the Great Pyramid. What's the other name for them? So the reference point here, as you see, is to the top right is that point. So what happens is this: you overlay Australia over it on January 11th, 1944. and this is the orientation you get. And you see the descending passage goes through that crater, and I'll name them in a moment. Now in the antechamber, the antechamber is 116.26 pyramid inches wide. I married the local harlot. Angel told me to do so. Hated every second of it. Eileen Joyce Rosewarne of Lithgow, probably one of the most evil women that's ever lived, and a complete and utter harlot. And I had to marry her to produce the children. God comes to the earth, has to marry the selection of Lucifer. Now, I married her in 1966, April the 23rd. I was 1162.6 weeks old, so that's your width of your antechamber, 116.26 inches. It's also, at the age I was 22.28 years, and that's the height of the highest mountain in Australia in metres, 2228, Mount Kosciuszko. Look it up on the internet. The angle shown here determines the height of the passage. So it says here, first low section. Well, that's the height of the passage. Now, my eldest daughter and my third wife, who was 1162.6 days younger than I, Michelle Sheila Nye, another evil woman, she conceived without sexual intercourse her daughter Rhiannon. And her husband wasn't having anything to do with it. Anyhow, she conceived a baby, which didn't look good on the resume, did it? Because he's thinking, hey, I'm not the father, so he's not even too impressed with that either. But as it turns out that this baby was born in Geelong, Australia, 888 minutes, sunrise to sunset. And she is 11.626 years younger than my oldest daughter, born in Port Alberni, Canada, when I was 8,880 days old. And so we've got 11.626 years difference between the two children. Tracy, my oldest daughter, born in Port Alberni, sunrise to sunset, 888 minutes. And she was conceived 280 days earlier, and I can assure you the date. It was a horrifying moment for me. But she was conceived on the 27th of July in 1967. Jupiter was overhead for 888 minutes, and it's 88,800 miles wide. And on it goes. So let's not worry about who's divine here and who isn't. If you don't believe it, you won't. There's a close-up of it. See how the NASA and all that fits together. And the descending passage, rather the first low passage section of the bug up, I think, to get into. I'd had a heart attack the other day I went in there. The Jews tried to kill me with this spiked cigarette that had a bit of dope in it. And I smoked it and heart attack. Bang. So that's it. This is 11th of October. I'm going in, right? So I collapsed 8 times going up the passage. It was dreadfully painful. But I had to do it because of my mother's birthday. Take Australia and put it on the moon, it's the same width, fits perfectly. But the centre of Australia, draw a line, or the moon, draw a line to the centre of the equatorial line of the Earth, will give you the perfect shape of pyramid, 5151, 14.3 degrees space angle. It's called a triangle. I did it again here. I was playing around with it on the equator and so forth. This is some of the things I did. This is a 1992 or 3 era drawing that I was playing with. You see how rough it was because I didn't have the equipment. Interesting though, you get to New Zealand, you got Taiko, which is 52 miles perfectly around. It's in Kaiapara Harbour, and then you got Bergius, which is 53 miles perfectly round, and it shows you the white. If you look at the top of the crater there, Taiko, how it's sprayed out. So that indicates what angle the asteroid come in at. Then you've got the Tresnica, which is 16 miles wide. It's in Golden Bay in Christchurch, New Zealand. And the two islands are 888 miles apart, latitude. So if you look at the two boxes on the lower right. You put two squares together and then join the diagonal. That gives you the Christ angle of 2618.97 degrees, which is the descending passage. And there's the date. I was born at 2:22. Now, as I said, your computer's a hack, so be very careful. They just dial it up from the satellite, hello, and then they're into your computer. They can do what they like. I've known this right from day one. All computers must, by law, be built so they can dial up, and you don't even know them. I believe also your webcam, they can be looking at you through the webcam to see what you're doing. Now, hundreds of these drawings I've done, actually in the thousands, and they're too complex to show to the general public. But they're available, and of course the Jews have got it by backdooring my. They know absolutely who I am, so no problem. So here's your same angle, if you like, the descending passage, otherwise known as the Christ angle. Now, if you take the northern tip of Israel, it's 555.1 kilometres from the Great Pyramid. How many times the word Christ is found in 522 verses? 522 is a number for cubit, the mother measure, which is also in the Great Pyramid. So Christ is in the King James Bible. It's a Freemason translation, and they have no idea that they was getting backdoored themselves by the Holy Spirit. When they put all the Bible together, these numbers were in there that they had no idea because they were too stupid to realise that they were trying to outsmart God. But the codes are in the Bible in numbers. So there's your comparison, 936 on November the 17th, 2013, Garda on the Red Sea. And the photograph on the right I took is May the 17th, 1994. There's your comparison. So, you can see, I'll go back. Now, we sat with a group of people having a coffee. Inadvertently, we had been invited. We knew one of the gentlemen, and we was taken over to another gentleman we knew, and we sat down and started to talk. He just did it spontaneously. Now, one fat Jew sitting at the table is one of the wealthiest men in Egypt. He owns the largest pharmaceutical corporation in the Middle East. He flies to Germany to have his blood changed every month. He just arrived back. Now, he's a big man, fat. He would require the entire blood from 8 children up to 10-year-olds to fill this great carcass. So the question is, man whispered in my ear, he said, he goes to Germany to get his blood changed for children's blood. What the Jews do, they will kidnap children. That is why you go and look at your milk container in America or Europe, and there's a photograph of a missing child. There's over 100,000 go missing in America alone. That's 10 years ago, so probably more than that. So they are looking for Christian children, about 8 and 9-year-olds, and blue eyes is preferred, and some say blonde hair. I'm not sure about that, but probably. They stand out more easy to pick up a blonde child walking down the street than a dark-haired child to make sure that he's got blue eyes. You might as well take a blonde kid. There's a fair chances are he's got blue eyes. So they take the child, they cut their throat, drain the blood out. The child dies in absolute fear and terror. They then collect the blood, and this is what they do. That is why they have immortality in their mind by keep on putting the Christian blood with the Jesus spirit in it into them to keep them alive. So this asshole, he flies to Germany, and why not use Egyptian children? Oh no, they've got to use Christian blonde, blue-eyed shotgun. So that's what it's all about.